So we just had a little intro to parameters, right? Function parameters, okay? Positional parameters to be specific. So these are positional parameters, all right? And they are positional because they are called positional parameters because their arguments are passed according to the position, according to their position in the function definition. For instance, name comes first. All right, name comes first, weight comes second, address comes third, and age comes last. All right, so they must be in this order. Okay, anything outside this order is going to throw an error. All right, so I'm trying to pass weight first and name second, and I'm getting this error. So they must be in the right order, in their right positions, right? That is why they are called positional parameters. All right, positional parameters. So now we are going to look at named parameters. Now. Okay, and here it says, unlike positional parameters, the parameters name must be specified while the value is being passed. Okay, curly brace can be used to specify optional named parameters. Okay, so we have the following syntax for declaring function with named parameters, and of course how to call it also. This is how named parameters are passed in function calls. Okay, so I'm going to do something right now. I'm just going to change this to I'm going to change this function, this about me function, into a function with named parameters. No more positional parameters. All right, these parameters are going to be named. So I'll just comment this out and I'll copy my function. Okay, so how do we change it to named parameters? We are told here that it is with this curly braces, the curly brace, all right, or the curly brackets, anyone you choose to call it, right? So it is with these curly brackets that we change our function parameters to named parameters. Okay, so let's do that with this. I'm going to have to remove these square brackets because they're no longer needed, and I'm going to make this required again. Okay, so the simple way to do it is by passing. Okay, I want to do something. Okay, but first let me make all of them named. All right, so the way to make your parameters named is just like I did. You wrap them in curly brackets. All right, so you have curly brackets. You now have curly brackets at the beginning and curly brackets at the end. But I have an issue here. It says the parameter name can't have a value of null because of its type. Okay, so this is like what we had in our variable declaration when we declared variables without giving them values. Okay, and we had an error. like this. Okay, I said the non-nullable variable name must be initialized. So we are having this error because these parameters need to be initialized. Okay, so what is the way out? We can either initialize them, okay, we can either initialize them, or but since this is not what we want, right, we want to be able to call our function like this and pass in our arguments, right, individually. So we are not going to do this. We are not going to initialize them like this. Instead, we are going to look for another way. Okay, and that is, we are going to try, it says try adding either an explicitly non-null default value, which is what we just did, but because of what we want to achieve, we are not going to go with that, or the required modifier. Alright, so it says we should add a required modifier, right? Or alternatively, we can make it null. We can make our values nullable. Okay, but the problem with that is that if I call my function now, I don't need to pass in my parameters using their position, right? I can now use their name. So if I say name Ebuka, right, and then what's this? This is weight, this is address, and this is age. Okay, so the problem with this is that let me do the same thing. Okay, so the problem with this is that I can call my function. Now I'm calling this function now, passing my named arguments, right? You can see I am now passing them using their names, no longer their positions. All right, here I was using their position, I was passing them according to their position, but now I am passing them according to their name. So they don't even have to follow a particular order, right? Address can come first, any other name can come last, right? Any value can come in any position, it doesn't matter, right? Because what I am actually using to access them now is no longer their position but their names. All right, so what was I going to say? So this is basically it. All right, but yeah, now the problem with fixing this problem by making each value to be nullable is that if by mistake I omit passing in the name argument, right? If I omit passing in the name argument, maybe by mistake, right, and I run this code, I'm going to have in this second function call, I'm going to have my name is null. You see that my name is null, so this is going to default to null if the argument for this parameter is not provided. All right, so how do we fix that? You can fix that by actually making this to be required. Now if you hover on this, you see that one of the suggestions that was given to us is to try adding an explicitly non-null default value or the required modifier, right? So this is the required modifier. This simply makes it compulsory that we provide a name, that we provide our name, a value for our name parameter. Okay, I don't know if you get it. It makes it compulsory that we provide name. That is why we have this error here. And what does the error say? It says the named parameter name is required, so we must pass in name. All right, we must pass in name. An alternative to that is we can make this parameter to be positional. All right, we can make it positional. And how do we do that? We just bring it outside of this curly bracket, right? So right now name is positional and all the other parameters are named. Okay, and because name is positional, it means name must come first. It must be provided, that's number one, and it must come first. All right, so this is how to make. Now it is non-positional, right? So you don't have to, you don't access it with the name, but with the position now, because it is positional. So this is like one way of making sure that every time a function is called, a particular parameter, a particular argument is provided, right? Yeah. So as for the other parameters, we can decide that they can be provided if the people calling them want to provide them. For instance, you can decide that if you want, you can provide your address. For instance, you can provide your address, but in case you don't want to provide your address, we are going to assume that you live where? In Nsukka. All right, so that is what this simply does. This particular parameter assumes that everybody that is calling this function lives in Nsukka, unless they state otherwise by calling this function. Sorry, by passing the parameter, by passing an argument, a different argument when they call the function. So if I run this, I have Nsukka here because I explicitly set a default address here, right? And no address was provided, no address argument was provided here to counter it, to kind of counter it. All right, so the default address is what was displayed here. But in Kingsley's case, he lives in Lagos, right? And he explicitly stated that Lagos is where he lives, and so this Lagos argument overrides the address value, the default address value that was set. All right, so that's it for positional and named arguments. And of course, we can actually make one of these to be required as well, like age. Okay, we can make it compulsory that anybody calling this function must pass their age. Okay, so if now something just happened when I called this function. As soon as I selected this suggestion, right? You can see that these two parameters are shown automatically. Why? Because they are compulsory. Name is positional, and because it is positional, it must be provided, right? And age as well is required. Because it is required, it must be provided. I can choose to not provide weight and address. All right, so that's it. So name, what's going to be the name of this person? This is BC. Okay, so my name is BC. I live in Ozuka. I'm 33 years old and I weigh 0 kg. All right, 0 kg because we did not provide any weight. Okay, so you can prevent that by actually providing weight. All right, so I believe we have covered parameters, right? Function parameters. So let's see what we have next. And we have also done optional parameters with default values, right? We have done that. So next we are going to look at we'll probably look at recursive functions and lambda functions. All right, so thank you very much and I'll see you in the next class.